Non-conference play was not a friend to K-State. The Wildcats went 6-5 and suffered losses to an LSU team that probably won't make the NCAA tournament, a Drake team that might but will probably have to win Arch Madness to get there, and a Wichita State team that is not going to make the NCAA tournament, as well as others like Liberty that could be tossed in there, and St. John's, who will probably make the NCAA tournament. But 6-5 puts you in a massive spot to come from behind in conference play, and that's where K-State sits. They got off to a good start and came back to life here on Monday night just before we hit 2025 as K-State takes down number 16 Cincinnati 70-67, the final score in Manhattan tonight. I'm Mason Voth. Welcome into K-State Online as we get set to recap the game between the Cats and the Cats. And you'll notice no Drew Galloway with me tonight. He inexplicably missed his Super Bowl. He had just the, nerve to get sick during this time. So as much as that man would have loved to have seen Cincinnati get exposed for being the frauds that they were, he wasn't able to do it in person. But this is in dedication to Drew Galloway, who is sick, not dead, not dying. He will recover, but not here tonight to witness the downfall of the Cincinnati Bearcats this season. But the story of this game starts with the transfers that K-State brought in. It was a much talked about transfer class that K-State was able to get out of the portal this offseason. And for most of the non-conference, they didn't come through like people anticipated, including Coleman Hawkins, who was rumored to be around $2 million for his NIL deal. But tonight, Coleman Hawkins stepped up. The other player that really stepped up alongside him was another Big Ten transfer and the very first portal commit of this past cycle for K-State. That was Doug McDaniel. The players combined for 37 points tonight. They were efficient in scoring the basketball. Doug McDaniel had a couple of turnovers that got a little out of hand, but he did a lot more to impact winning than not, and that was one of the bigger impacts to this game was his insertion in the starting lineup. He plays 33 minutes tonight. It ends up being the second most minutes he's played all season behind 36, which happened against LSU. Coincidentally, before this one was probably his best game of the year. But he'd only played 5 minutes in the loss at Wichita State, and things did not seem to be trending in a good direction for Doug McDaniel. But after the game, Jerome Tang gave a very long and very insightful answer into what led to Doug McDaniel being in the starting lineup, but it essentially came back to a couple of different things. Something that they talk about during Shark Week, something that K-State's done during the offseason under Jerome Tang to get these guys prepared for the grind of the end of Big 12 games and to have some longevity and find some extra juice as the season wears on. And then also something else that Jerome Tang talks about quite a bit, and that would be the Bible. And he referenced a couple of different versions of a certain verse, and it kind of rang out to him and basically said that it was the undeserved privilege was what was discussed, and he had some conversations with assistants who were kind of hinting at, hey, we should just put Doug in the starting lineup and see how it goes. And Jerome Tang used the words to say that he was pissed that they would even suggest such a thing. But everything that kind of mixed together led to Tang thinking that was something that was worth a go, and it obviously paid off for the Cats tonight. A couple of notable things within what K-State did. All throughout the game, I don't think you can find a spell where you go, man, that was really bad basketball, which is something that Fan and I talked about after the Wichita State game. This team had relentlessly given you about 5 to 10 really good minutes throughout most games, but then they had 15, 20-minute stretches where they were really, really bad. Tonight, you could not find anything like that, and that is probably the number one reason why K-State was able to get over the hump and start Big 12 play 1-0 this evening. So there's a lot within the game that could be discussed, but I think most people are probably thinking about big picture for K-State. You get a win over a top 25 team to start Big 12 play. You start to think, okay, what does this actually mean, though? Because one win is just one win. And K-State now has 19 more Big 12 games in front of them before the Big 12 tournament. We know that no team with more than 14 losses has ever received an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. That likely means that K-State needs to finish Big 12 play 12-8 or better to give them some room, because you're probably not going to win the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, which would obviously automatically get you in. So K-State has a big hill to climb. But what we saw tonight was a team that looks capable of doing it. It looked like the team that we anticipated to see from the jump this season. Now the real question is, can this team back up one statement win with another? I'm a big believer in the thought process that you can only get a statement win if you get the next one. And you think back to all of the statement victories throughout K-State over the last couple of years, whether it would be basketball or football. I always go back to Chris Kleiman's first season, 2019. K-State gets that win over Oklahoma. That's awesome. That's impactful. That means something. But it meant nothing if they had gone on the road and lost in Lawrence the week after that. And what they ended up doing was going on the road and beating the snot out of Les Miles and the Jayhawks. And it was a strong first season for Chris Kleiman, which ended with an 8-4 regular season. You think about basketball and everything that kind of comes with that. K-State, awesome. You got that great win over Kentucky. But how are you going to do when you go play Michigan State? They bounced back. They got the overtime victory over the Spartans and advanced to the Elite Eight in year number 1 under Jerome Tang. And again, you can find these examples of backing it up. You can also go through plenty of examples and say, oh, you got the big win, and then you screwed up the following week. Look no further than K-State football this year. Twice, I think you could point to times where they fought back, they got the big win over KU, and then the next week went on the road, lost at Houston. Then K-State, after their slump, beats the snot out of Cincinnati, goes on the road, can't get that win over Iowa State, which would have drastically changed the feel of the way that the season closed out for K-State. So now K-State has the task of going on the road in basketball season to go get a win in Fort Worth on Saturday, where they will face the TCU Horned Frogs. TCU could be a vulnerable team right now. Some of the pieces that they got out of the transfer portal are not available to play as they've been banged up and dealt with things throughout the year. It is a very, I think you could use the word, a very good test, I guess, would be the simplest way to explain it, for K-State to start the year. You're not coming out of the gates facing Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, whoever it will be at the top of the Big 12. But you're facing some teams in the middle ground that you would think you're comparable to, but you should beat if you want any hope of being an NCAA tournament team and saving your season. And for the time being, K-State has brought themselves back to life. Now they have to go out and get a win against TCU on Saturday to keep the train moving. Then next week, they start the week on the road at Oklahoma State before they return home to Bramlage next weekend. So the path is there for K-State to get this train moving back in the right direction. The key will be to make sure that this is just not one game and that this is what K-State will be the rest of the way and that they've unlocked something. We'll see. Jerome Tang's answers post-game, he was positive. I think he feels better about it now that the team has seen a big win this season, because this is easily the best win that K-State has achieved all year. But you do start to wonder, he said it after the Wichita State game in response to questions about the losses to St. John's and WSU. They're just 2 games. Is tonight the start of something special for K-State, or is it just one game? The answer begins Saturday against TCU. Derek Young will be down there for us, and we'll have plenty of coverage in the build-up and afterwards with the Cats and the Frogs this weekend from Fort Worth. From Bramlage Coliseum, I'm Mason Voth saying good night, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.